Voldemort is not afraid of Dumbledore. He is wary of him. He respects his power in the technical sense of accounting for it as a variable. He avoided open conflict with him for years, not out of fear exactly, but out of the cold strategic calculation of someone who weighs risks precisely and found the odds insufficiently favorable. Their duel at the Ministry of Magic is extraordinary. Two of the most powerful wizards alive exchanging spells in the atrium while Harry watches from the floor. But what reveals Voldemort's greatest fear is not the duel itself. It is the moment after the duel, when Voldemort, unable to kill Harry through spellwork, does the most dangerous thing he has ever attempted. He possesses him. He enters Harry's mind and body directly, wearing him like a skin, using him as a vehicle, trying to force Dumbledore into the impossible position of destroying Harry to destroy Voldemort. And Harry, racked with grief over Sirius, barely conscious, in more pain than he has ever been, does not fight back with power. He feels. You remember Sirius. He lets the grief in completely. And Voldemort, one of the most powerful dark wizards who ever lived, cannot survive it. He tears himself out of Harry's mind and flees. What the possession was supposed to achieve. To understand what the possession reveals, you have to understand what Voldemort was attempting. He had just fought Dumbledore directly and found himself unable to land a killing blow. Dumbledore is a defensive genius. The entire duel is characterized by his ability to contain, deflect, and redirect rather than simply overpower. Voldemort could not destroy him cleanly, and with Ministry officials arriving, the window was closing. The possession was the move of someone thinking 3 steps ahead. If Voldemort inhabits Harry's body, Dumbledore cannot attack without killing Harry. Harry becomes simultaneously a shield and a hostage. Voldemort could destroy Dumbledore from inside his greatest protection, the boy he could not bring himself to harm. It was strategically elegant. It was the kind of move that demonstrated exactly the quality Dumbledore always cited as Voldemort's greatest strength, his willingness to use other people as instruments, his total absence of compunction about the cost to them. And it failed completely. Not because Dumbledore found a counter, not because Harry found a spell, because Harry stopped trying to fight what was inside him and instead felt it, and what he felt was something Voldemort's fragmented soul could not endure being near. The strategy was sound. The flaw was in what the strategy required Voldemort to come into contact with. The fear beneath the fear of death. Everyone in the wizarding world assumes Voldemort's greatest fear is death. The evidence seems overwhelming. He built his entire life around defeating mortality. He created 7 Horcruxes. He spent decades in incorporeal exile, rather than fully die. He chose a name that translates, roughly, as flight from death. Every major choice of his adult life was organized around the single goal of never dying. But the possession scene at the Ministry reveals something deeper than the fear of death. It reveals what the fear of death is protecting. Voldemort cannot survive contact with genuine human grief. With the specific, overwhelming, open-hearted emotion of a person who loved someone and lost them and is not trying to control or suppress what that feels like. The moment Harry stops fighting the possession and lets Sirius's death fully in, lets himself feel the weight of it without armor, without strategy, without any attempt to make it manageable, Voldemort tears himself free and retreats. His greatest fear is not death. It is feeling. More specifically, it is the loss of control that comes with feeling, the vulnerability, the exposure. The fact that genuine emotion, grief, love, connection makes you dependent on things outside yourself, things that can be taken, things that can hurt you, things you cannot protect yourself from by being more powerful than the person in front of you. Voldemort spent his life building walls against exactly this. The Horcruxes were not just about physical survival. They were about never being vulnerable to loss. If nothing matters to you, nothing can be taken from you. If you love nothing, you grieve nothing. If you have no attachments, You have no exposed surfaces for pain to enter through. Why grief was the one thing he could not counter. Harry's grief for Sirius is not a weapon in any conventional sense. It cannot be blocked with a shield charm. It has no counter curse. It does not follow any of the rules of the magical combat framework the films have established. It is simply the raw emotional reality of a 17-year-old boy whose only family just fell through a curtain and who is lying on the floor of the Ministry atrium with the enemy inside his mind. And Voldemort, who has countered or survived everything the wizarding world has ever thrown at him, cannot counter this because grief of this depth requires a soul intact enough to feel it. It requires the capacity for love that Voldemort systematically destroyed in himself through 50 years of murder and soul-splitting. When he enters Harry's mind and encounters the full force of that grief, unguarded, unmediated, flooding through every part of Harry's consciousness, he is not encountering something stronger than him in a power sense. He is encountering something that his own internal architecture has made it impossible to process. It is like putting a creature that has evolved entirely in darkness into direct sunlight, not a matter of strength, a matter of fundamental incompatibility between what the creature has become and what it is now required to survive inside. Dumbledore explains this afterward in exactly these terms. He tells Harry that the thing Voldemort cannot understand, the power Harry has that Voldemort lacks, is love. Not love as sentiment, not love as weakness. Love as a living force, present in grief and attachment, and the willingness to feel loss completely, rather than insulating yourself against it. The possession failed, not because Harry was stronger, it failed because Harry was more human. And Voldemort, who had spent his entire life engineering his own departure from humanity, had no resource left for surviving an encounter with it. The orphan who chose the opposite. Tom Riddle grew up in an orphanage. He had no parents, no family, no one who belonged to him and to whom he belonged. He experienced the specific loneliness of a child who is nobody's particular person, who exists in the care of an institution rather than the love of individuals. Harry Potter also grew up without his parents, also without belonging, also without the fundamental childhood experience of being someone's first priority. They started from the same place. They arrived at opposite responses to it. Tom Riddle decided that the emptiness confirmed what he suspected. Connection was not available to him, and the correct response was to stop wanting it, to build a self that did not require it, to become so powerful that the absence of love would not matter because nothing could harm him anyway. Harry Potter decided, every time he was given the chance, to reach toward people anyway. Ron in the first year, Hermione, the Weasleys, Sirius, Dumbledore. He formed attachments that could hurt him and did hurt him, and kept forming them anyway, because the alternative, the sealed-off, self-sufficient, invulnerable existence Tom Riddle had chosen, looked to Harry like a kind of death, even while you were still alive. The Ministry scene is the moment these two responses to the same original wound are put in direct contact with each other. Voldemort enters Harry's mind with his architecture of invulnerability and finds it full of the very thing he has spent his life fleeing. The grief is not just for Sirius. It is the accumulated weight of every bond Harry formed that Riddle never allowed himself. Every attachment, every loss, every moment of genuine love that Harry permitted and Riddle did not. Voldemort entered a mind and found it inhabited in a way his own mind had not been inhabited for decades. And he could not stay. What the retreat revealed that the duel did not. In the duel itself, Voldemort is recognizably himself. Precise, cold, technically masterful, operating without hesitation or visible emotion. He fights Dumbledore the way a master strategist fights, adapting, probing for weakness, escalating force when necessary, retreating from lines of attack that are not working, and finding others. The duel does not reveal his fear. It confirms his competence. But the retreat after the possession, the moment Voldemort tears himself free of Harry's mind and vanishes, rather than pressing any further advantage, is something entirely different. It is involuntary. It is not a tactical withdrawal. It is flight. The specific, uncharacteristic, revealing flight of someone who has encountered something they had not prepared for and cannot manage. Voldemort never flees. He retreats tactically when the odds warrant it, yes, he is not reckless, but he does not run from things because they hurt him. The entire edifice of his character is built on the premise that nothing can hurt him in any way that matters, that pain is a variable to be managed rather than a genuine threat to his interior. Harry's grief hurt him, not physically, not magically. In whatever narrow passage of feeling Voldemort's fractured soul still had, contact with Harry's raw, open, entirely unguarded emotion was agonizing in a way he had no framework for surviving. The retreat is the most honest moment Voldemort has in any of the 8 films. Every other moment is performance or calculation or the cold execution of a plan. This one moment is pure, involuntary self-revelation. He showed, in the atrium of the Ministry of Magic, what he was most afraid of. Not death, not defeat, not Dumbledore. Feeling. How this fear ran through everything he did. Once you see the fear revealed in the possession scene, you can trace it backward through the entire series and find it everywhere. The Horcruxes were not just about defeating death. They were about never having to feel the terror that comes with knowing you can die, about making the possibility of loss untouchable, about constructing an existence in which the worst thing that could happen had been in principle neutralized, so that you would never have to sit with the open, helpless, undefended feeling of genuine fear.